Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're jumping into something really fascinating. Integrity, faith, and the ancient figure of Job.
That's right.
We've got some source material, a modern commentary actually, on the first few verses of the book of Job. And it really pushes back on, well, a lot of modern ideas about what it means to be pure.
It does. Our mission really is to look past just the religious side of things and dig into what Job 1.1 means when it calls him blameless and upright.
Yeah.
What the sources give us isn't just, history or theology. It's a definition of being authentic, being sound, that feels surprisingly relevant today, even with all our skepticism. It asks, well, what does it mean to be whole?
Okay, let's start right there with that skepticism, because that's also a big hurdle, isn't it, when you first encounter this material?
For sure.
Many people, especially if they're not coming from a faith background, they look at the book of Job, particularly that dialogue between God and Satan. Seems pretty surreal.
It does have that quality.
And they tend to see it as, well, fiction. Maybe like those big Chinese literary myths, Sun Wukong, or Greek myths with all the gods interfering. It reads like a fable.
It's very understandable reading, yeah. But the source material we're looking at, it pushes back.
Yeah?
Quite deliberately, in fact.
How so?
They really emphasize the Christian viewpoint that Job is consistently presented as a real person, historical, someone who had genuine experiences, not just a symbol.
Okay, not just a literary device.
Exactly. And they don't just say it, they point to evidence outside the book of Job itself.
Ah, okay. Tell us about that, because reading about him in his own book is one thing, but seeing him pop up elsewhere, that adds weight. What confirmation are we talking about?
Well, the sources point to two specific biblical books written centuries apart, which kind of anchors him in that historical narrative.
Right.
First, you got the Old Testament. The prophet Ezekiel, in Ezekiel 14.1, mentions Job directly.
And who does he mention him alongside?
That's the interesting part. He puts him right next to Noah and Daniel. Figures generally seen as, actual historical people dealing with real moral challenges and crises.
So not lumped in with mythical beings, but with historical figures.
Yes, precisely. Then you jump forward hundreds of years, New Testament. James, Jesus' brother, he brings up Job's endurance in James 5.1
As an example?
as a genuine historical example for believers to look to. So these references, taken together, they suggest Job wasn't just a story character. His experiences were understood as real events.
Okay, so why does that matter? Whether he was real or a myth, what difference does it make for us practically?
Well, think about it. If Job was a real guy going through real devastating loss, then his story isn't just some abstract lesson about morality.
Right.
It becomes this foundational text, a guidepost for what we can expect in the real world when it comes to suffering, which is, let's face it, a central theme of the book.
Chaos, unfairness.
Exactly. If he were just a myth, his tragedy wouldn't hit the same way, would it? It wouldn't have the same relevance for dealing with life's actual, messy, often unfair problems. His reality tells us sometimes terrible things do happen to genuinely good people.
That makes a lot of sense. The story's impact really hinges on believing the tragedy was real.
Okay, let's shift then. From the man's reality to his character. Job 1.1, blameless and upright. That sounds lofty.
It does.
When we look at the original concept the source uses, this idea of completeness or purity, Chunjing, I think you said.
Yeah.
How do we bring that down to earth? What does it mean for, everyday integrity?
Yeah, and this is where the commentary gets really nuanced and I think helpful. It makes a critical point right away.
Yeah.
Blameless or complete absolutely does not mean Job was sinless.
Okay. That's important. Crucial. The sources are very clear on that they maintain no human can claim that kind of perfection. Instead, this purity, this integrity. It means he was sound and mature in character.
Sound and mature.
And his behavior was honest, ethical, zangzi, upright.
So soundness versus sinlessness. That's a pretty big difference. How does the commentary explain that without, making it sound like they're just lowering the moral standard?
Well, it's not really lowering the standard, it's changing the measurement. It's not about hitting an impossible mark of perfection, but about internal coherence. Think of it like a piece of fruit. Something that's whole or sound. It might have a little bruise, right? A small blemish.
Yeah.
But it's not rotten inside. It's mature. It holds together.
Okay.
So the source defines a person of integrity as sound without hypocrisy or being two-faced. They're integrated, psychologically, spiritually.
Right.
What you see is what you get. Their public self matches their private self. That's wholeness.
And the commentary points out that Job maintained this soundness. even under unimaginable pressure,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. That's what makes it so powerful. He lost everything. His friends hammered him, insisting he must have some secret sin.
Yeah, those dialogues are brutal.
They are. And through it all, even God's silence. Job kept his core intact. He stayed sound.
And God ultimately backed him up on that.
Yes, defended his purity, his soundness to Satan, the accuser, confirmed it. He wasn't perfect, no, but he was authentic. He was whole.
Oh, okay. This idea of Job being profoundly righteous but not sinless, that brings up something interesting the commentary addresses. If the text insists he was whole, why do so many modern readers, especially critics maybe, seem so quick to find flaws? Or insist he couldn't possibly have been that good? What's the source's take on that reaction?
That's a great question. The commentary suggests this tendency to nitpick Job's complete righteousness, this need to find the flaw, the impossibility. It might be coming from somewhere deeper than just critical thinking.
Like what?
It suggests it can sometimes be a habit of people who are, let's say, spiritually shallow or maybe weaker in their own faith journey. They're looking for, an excuse.
An excuse, like a moral get-out-of-jail-free card.
Sort of, yeah. The hidden logic might be something like, look, even Job wasn't perfect, see? So I don't need to beat myself up about striving for character either.
It lets them off the hook.
It can function that way, yeah. It deflects personal responsibility. The source argues that, look, real humility, real spiritual maturity involves recognizing that everyone is weak, everyone needs redemption. It's not about tearing down examples like Job to feel better about our own lack of effort.
Right.
The focus should be on becoming sound ourselves, not getting bogged down debating whether someone centuries ago was literally sinless.
That really shifts the focus, doesn't it?
Okay.
Away from historical nitpicking and onto our own integrity.
Exactly.
And according to the sources, Job's integrity, the soundness, it grew from one specific root, fearing God and shunning evil. Now that word fear, in English today, it sounds like terror, dread.
Right, and that's not quite it.
That doesn't seem to fit with a loving character. How did the sources explain that?
Yeah, that's vital. They spend time on this. Fearing God, the concept, Jingwei, isn't about being scared of God like punishment is coming. It's about profound respect. Reverence.
Respect for what, specifically?
Respecting what God is, God's nature, authority. Respecting what God says, the moral guidelines. And respecting what God does, God's actions and sovereignty.
So it's more like awe or deep respect born out of knowing who God is.
Precisely. The source explicitly contrasts it. It's not the cowering fear of a slave before a harsh master.
Okay.
It's much closer to the loving respect, the reverence a child feels towards a wise and good father. You trust the father, you respect their rules, you want to live up to their standard out of love and loyalty.
That reframes fear completely. It makes it about relationship, not threat.
Exactly. And that reverence, that respect, sets the boundaries for your integrity. If you deeply respect the father, you naturally try to live by the standards of the household.
Yeah, that makes sense. And this foundational reverence, it seems, is also the source of real security, which makes that quote the sources mentioned from Dr. Zhang really hard.
Oh yeah, that's a powerful one.
If you fear God, you fear nothing else. If you don't fear God, you fear everything.
Wow. It really sums it all up, doesn't it? This idea of foundational integrity, creating inner stability. If your highest point of reference, your ultimate respect, is reserved for God.
Then other things lose their ultimate power over you.
Exactly. Political threats, money worries, what people think of you. Sure, those things can still hurt, they're real, but they can completely shatter your core identity or character if that ultimate reverence is holding you steady. They just don't compare.
So practically speaking, how does this fearing God, this reverence, show up day to day? What does it look like in action?
Well, it translates into having clear priorities and disciplined effort. If your focus is rooted in that deep respect for God,
Your energy goes elsewhere.
right, you naturally direct your efforts towards doing good, aligning with that internal compass. And you actively avoid things that pull you off track, the shunning evil bit.
Like temptations, destructive habits.
Yes. And critically, the source points out, you stop pouring your energy into things that consume so much of modern life. Obsessing over status, chasing applause, needing fame.
Because your priority is set higher.
Your priority is set by that foundational respect. That makes you inherently sound, more stable.
Okay, to make this idea of being sound but not perfect really concrete, the sources bring up a great example.
Yeah.
George Leslie Mackay,
Oh, Mackay, yes.
a figure whose life shows incredible dedication and impact, but also human flaws. He seems like a perfect illustration of this sound but not sinless idea.
He really is an excellent case study for this. A Canadian missionary devoted basically his whole adult life, 30 years, to Taiwan.
And his focus.
Spreading the gospel, yes, but also just building community, improving lives. His commitment was deep and very personal.
What were some of his major contributions, the things that show this, sound character in action?
Oh, his legacy there is huge, multifaceted. He was a pioneer in medicine, bringing modern dentistry, training local people, big impact.
Okay.
Education, too. He founded schools like what's now Alathai University, and schools for girls, which was pretty revolutionary then. He also did a lot to preserve culture, studied dialects, documented plants and animals. And personally, he married a Taiwanese indigenous woman, Zhang Kongming. Plus, he established something like 60 Presbyterian churches. He really poured himself into that place. Died there, buried in Tamsui.
That's an incredible record of service. A life clearly dedicated to a higher purpose, but like you said, human. The source mentions a specific flaw.
It does. It notes that while he was incredibly driven, his style could be difficult sometimes.
How so?
He was known to be, occasionally authoritarian. A bit bossy, maybe. Badao, or Zwanzi, as the source puts it. A man of very strong convictions, maybe not always the best at delegating or softening his approach.
Okay, so we see this picture. Immense integrity in his mission, deep soundness in his life's work, but also a sometimes difficult personality. What's the main takeaway the sources want us to get from Mackay?
I think the key point is balance, recognizing that focusing only on this personality flaws, the bossiness, maybe a lack of diplomacy.
Doesn't cancel out the good.
Exactly. It doesn't erase the massive, undeniable good he achieved in medicine, education, spiritual life. It forces us to see that real, impactful integrity operates within flawed human beings.
You can be sound at your core, dedicated to your purpose.
Even if you're sometimes rough around the edges, yes. Soundness, not perfection.
Which brings us right back to Job and to you listening. What does all this mean for navigating your life? It really hammers home that integrity is about being sound, being whole, being consistent.
Not being two-faced.
Right. Whether things are going great or you're facing your own version of Job's trials, it's about that soundness, not an impossible sinlessness.
And to help you take this from just, ideas to actual practice, the source material ends with 3 reflection questions. Really good ones for self-assessment. We really encourage you to sit with these.
Okay, what are they?
First, based on this definition we've been discussing, soundness, honesty, maturity, what do you actually need to do for others to genuinely see you as complete or whole in your character?
That's personal.
It is. Second, can you think of a recent time when you felt tempted to compromise your integrity? To be inconsistent, maybe say one thing and do another, just to get something you wanted or avoid a tough spot.
Or if not recently, maybe imagine a scenario.
Exactly. If you can't recall one, try to imagine a specific situation where your integrity would likely face its toughest test. What would that look like?
Okay, and the third?
The third goes back to the foundation. Can you honestly say that you practice that kind of loving reverence we talked about, that fearing God? Is that active in your life?
Those are challenging questions.
Yeah.
And for anyone wanting to dig deeper into that specific concept, the fear of God as reverence.
Yes, the sources mentioned a book by Pastor John Bevere, Fear of God Makes You Fearless. Apparently quite helpful for people seeking that kind of foundational respect that leads to security.
Good resource to know.
And building on that, maybe one final thought to leave you with. Job's story revolves around suffering, right? Immense loss. So if integrity means holding on to that reverence, that loving respect of a child for a father, even when everything else feels like it's falling apart, what's just one single act of reverence, of respect that you could choose to do today? Something that might help stabilize whatever your biggest current fear is.
That's a powerful question to ponder. Thank you for providing the source materials that led to this deep dive today.
Our pleasure.
We hope you found this exploration of sound character and reverence valuable, and we look forward to seeing how you apply these ideas.